Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny and I'm an astrologer and a healer, and I work with the energy of Archangel Metatron in bringing forward these messages for all of you. I'm curious to hear or report how everybody's been faring during the astro weather, the eclipse season, and everything that we have coming up with that in the astrology. Aside from just it being eclipse season, there's so much going on right now. So I've actually had a really wonderful couple of days. I still have that food intolerance thing happening, but relationship wise, it's been really amazing. I just had a really surprising conversation with my mother. And I have not, for reasons that I'm not going to get into, but we haven't discussed, anything that I do. I'm not sure she really had a good idea of what it was. And I needed to ask her a question to find out when, as a baby, I started talking to her about my adventures in other places. My parents were like, 21 about at that age because they had me very as teenagers, and I would talk about, we went here, we did that, we did this, and they would laugh. I realized, like, as a baby, I can remember the scene in my high chair. For those of you who understand astrology, my Mercury is angular, and it is in mutual reception in Virgo. Because of mutual reception, it's in Virgo. But so I was relaying stories of my adventures, and they would ask me questions and I would answer, because they didn't know, they were like laughing, like, she's got such a good imagination. And she said that during the conversations, they started looking at each other like, did someone take her somewhere? Like, did she really do these things? Because I was just talking about it so matter of factly. So then I explained to her that I was just remembering, the astral plane and what I had been doing. And she was like, oh, and she was thinking for a while. And then my daughter was there with us, the one who's here visiting from Santa Cruz. And she said something, and my mom goes, I want to go there. And we both looked at her, and I was like, do you mean astral travel? And she said, yeah, I want to do that. And I was like, oh, you're there. I'm like, I see you there all the time. So anyway, it was pretty amazing because, she's the one who opened my mind to all of these things, but then, never really went further with it. And I didn't at the time either. So anyway, it was pretty cool. And I just had a lovely time with my daughter. She got in really late last night. But we just had a great time together so far. And her friends were over last night, and I love talking to all of them about astrology. And, they just have such amazing stories because they're all crystal children. I shared I think it was an LA Times article in either my group on Facebook, which is Astrology for Ascension, or the page. And thank you, everyone who has, and my new subscribers too. I have a lot of new subscribers, and a lot of people have joined the page and that group. But I shared an article about how the millennials are they've taken on the institution of religion, and that they give a lot of creed to crystals, to astrology, to esoteric healing, all kinds of things that we didn't, not that people weren't doing it, but Reiki wasn't prescribed by Mayo Clinic back when we were kids. And I was saying how, I would watch these boys coming over 17 years old talking about their chakras, and just how open all of them were. It's amazing. So, and Metatron said, when I shared the article, he said, these kids won't demand change, they will command change. So I found that very heartening. That lifted me a lot. And that's the revolution that we're talking about, because it's because of their Uranus and Pluto placements, that generation, that they're going to change the world. And we can't say when, but they have the astrology for it, and they're done with all of this nonsense. So, it's great. That's great, right? And that leads me to why this video is titled "Here Comes the Evolution" with the small r in front of it, because we're going to talk about the astrology of the lunar eclipse and full moon happening in Capricorn. And that seed was planted in January of 2018. And I've talked about before how the astrology, looking in the astrology, that Jupiter has entered the sign of Sagittarius at the end of last year, but that in sidereal astrology, like what constellation he's actually in, if you look at an app to look up at the planets, he was still in Scorpio. And so I kept saying, let's wait, because a lot of the sexual abuse allegations or just stories are still going to come to fruition, through this period that we're moving into. And what Metatron had to say about that, because in the new moon that happened in January of 2018, he said he was referring in particular to the Jeffrey Epstein case, that this will cast a very wide net. Like, I take notes as he's telling me things, and I had put, this will cast a wide net, and he was like, very. And I think that, we need to be mindful of, naming politicians and pointing fingers at other people, because we're going to be very surprised by the number of powerful people involved, maybe not all in politics, but powerful people. Where they're from doesn't mean that they're all going to be in the United States. And so, maybe just wait it out when you hear about this or that person. And, it's like when that whole Harvey Weinstein thing broke, which, by the way, was in the tropical zodiac. That was the day that Jupiter went into Scorpio, and that's Pluto. And that's secrets. It's sexual abuse secrets. It's abuse of power secrets. It's abuse of money, other people's money. And it's sexual abuse, just, and sexual slavery, that sort of thing. Okay. But that happened when Harvey Weinstein, when Jupiter went into Scorpio that day that all of that broke. And everybody knew about that. It was just it was a well-known secret, is what Metatron is saying. So, keep that in mind, because it's the problem. And, what I noticed after I finished the Mary Magdalene video, and I had spoken about, comments that I had, and attacks that I had about the one who's in the White House now. It isn't that all of the people who support him, because I have clients who support him. I've said, I don't know how many times, that both political parties are dirty, equally dirty. They're all taking money from the same people, pretty much, maybe not the same amount, but it's the system. It's not the people. It's the entire system that needs to change, that needs to go, really. And start again from scratch, where, the popular vote matters. Maybe, we could go on about this, but it's because people are worshiping like an idol, or putting someone else on a pedestal, whatever party. No one deserves, or, our worship, no one deserves to be on that pedestal, because it's like I've personally attacked. I think it was just because I was talking about, in the 7/7 series portal video, I was talking about the children in the internment camps and how much that bothered me, and that I did not like seeing tanks in the streets of the Capitol. And I was really shocked. The stuff that was said, that I was false light, that Metatron would never say anything about the current person in the White House, the one holding power, is what Metatron is saying. I didn't think that I had even said anything, but it was just like how dark I was, and hate speech, And I was like, what? Because I'm thinking, did I say something that I don't remember? But I don't think so. I think that I remember it well. I didn't sit and watch the whole 2.5 hours again. But and thank you to everyone who did. It's kind of broken into 3 segments. So, you could fast forward through the meeting part and just go to the meditation. But that's the Emerald Fire meeting. And that is in the description box below the link. It's free and it's 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday mornings. But getting back to the Harvey Weinstein scandal, I think that this is just going to keep pouring out a lot more allegations too. So before we all point fingers, I'm sure that I'm going to say, like, I'm not saying that the man is innocent, but I do think that the people who are really holding power were happy to serve him up. So we always have to look at the motives in that too, as well. And, it isn't just him. There's equal guilt to be shared, is what Metatron is saying. Okay, so we're going to just wait and watch this play out. Because especially during all of these retrogrades and the eclipses, we're not getting the entire story for sure. Okay. So yeah, that look, and it's funny because in the new moon, when that new moon was seated, if you look where the number 1 is, if you look next to where it says AC, you can see that Jupiter is the one who was going through Scorpio in 2018, bringing up all of the secrets on the dirty stuff of Scorpio, that deep, dark water that nobody cares to look at for a very long time, or it's hard for us to look at that. And Mars, the ancient ruler of Scorpio, and the masculine. And then Sphinx is right next to them. They're all 3 clumped up there together. And Sphinx speaks to astral, like what goes on in other dimensions, and pay attention to that in your natal chart, because it shows just like different agreements. It depends on where it falls, but it's important, Sphinx. Okay, so yeah, that was like time for all of this corruption and nonsense to come to the fore. Time for it to be out in the light and not stuck down in the secret realms, or wherever people are keeping it hidden. And it's time for a reckoning, is what Metatron is saying. So that's good news. Yay. And then we have wonderful aspects. What else did you want me to? Okay. So he's reminding me, because he and I were discussing that I maybe am being a bit timid, is what he's saying, when he asked me to share things about climate change events. And when I first got on YouTube, especially when I was on Blog Talk Radio, honestly, I think because I knew really no one was listening, he would give me visions, and I would tell, everything and put it out there, never with the date. They don't give dates. If you hear a date or an event, not that there won't be something that happens that's maybe more demonstrative of the climate change scenarios that are happening, but there's never going to be a date given. Okay, no person is going to be told this is what's happening with this. When it's something that affects the entire collective, that can, like, you could get a date, and then 20 minutes later you could ask and it could be a different date. I mean, like, by a lot. So they don't give dates for things like that. Even with the astrology, we can always go back and look and say, oh yeah, but you can't pinpoint like where on the earth this stuff is going to go down. So you can give like a general idea, but I've been saying since I started doing this that Metatron showed me Pluto, the seed. It was a seed is what he showed me. Okay. And it was the earth as a seed cracking open. All right. And because that's how we blossom. Pluto, the seed, and then the power, the push that makes that seed crack and then start to grow. That's Pluto and Venus as Taurus and Scorpio. Taurus, Venus is where the blossoming then comes. Okay, the fruit of the earth, the fruition of that seed that was planted, whatever seed that was. So think back to, for yourself, January 2018. Where were you? What was the plan? What was happening then? Because these things will come up because of the astrology of this time now. All right, and so we're all going to focus now on blossoming as well, because okay, because this is when all the seeds that we've planted, because of what's happening with Saturn and Pluto and the South Node, that's when we're going to see these things like come to a climax in some way, come to fruition in some way. So if you've been working hard toward whatever that goal was, or maybe it's a relationship, then all of the efforts, the reward for your efforts is what is going to come up now. Okay, but with the earth changes, Pluto is the phoenix that rises from the ashes. I put a post on Facebook today that last night, as Pluto was moving into the opposition with the sun, which I spoke about in the video I did in the woods this week, there was a nebula over Norway that was photographed by, I posted it, Astronomy of the Day or something like that, posted it on Facebook, but you could find it on the pages. It's of the aurora borealis last night over Norway, and it looks like an eagle. Okay, and an eagle is the higher, in lore, you are in Scorpio like a snake, a spider, a scorpion, but after the transformation, and everyone has a Pluto and everyone has Scorpio in their chart, and everyone has the planet Pluto doing something, but it's something that's going to be transformed, that it's going to crumble and fall the tower, in order for something else to rise up, to be born from that. So these are the energies that are happening on the earth: as above, so below; as within, so without. What is happening on the earth is reflected internally in our emotions and what's going on in our lives. And what the planets are saying is that it's time for a reset. It's time for new growth, is what Metatron is saying. It's time for new growth. And evolution does not happen a seed cracking open is a violent, just like when the earth has to evolve and make adjustments for what is best for her and for all of us, for humanity. There are, we go through these periods where I've been saying for a long time, and I'm sure that I mentioned it in the Sirius portal video, that I saw a lot of instability in Australia. Now we have, the earthquake that happened there just yesterday. So, as these eclipses play out, remember I talked about the energy and that we personally don't feel like as much pressure once the planets come to that point and then they begin to separate. So, you won't feel whatever it is that you're feeling if you're stuck in it right now and really going through it. That's obviously, everybody is going to have that at some point after when these things begin to play out. But the earth is as well. The earth is still absorbing these new energies. In 888, 888 2015, when we went through that gateway, Metatron had me looking at I go on the website NOAA. I find another one, and I know, like, people keep telling me look here, but I find that they post a lot of things that are not accurate. But if you go on NOAA, it's a government site, and you can look for yourself to see how the geomagnetic storms are, because a lot of people find those stressful, and a lot of people can have headaches. But during that 888 gateway, like that entire month and through September, it's usually not even a K1. They were going up to like K7. And it was just like day after day, like I would have like 8 email notifications. And the earth at some point absorbs all of the upgrades that were coming in that period, okay? So we're looking at, if you look at all of the moon events from 2018, which are now, just like this one, starts January 18th, okay, or January 2018. Now, when these full moons that showed in their charts that they had a lot to do with water, they're going to start manifesting now. And there was talk of, I remember talking about a wave, a giant wave. And I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, because I think that a lot of this just nerves. I maybe, kind of just mention it because I don't want to worry people. But, there's never any reason to worry or to have any fear, because fear, wherever you direct your energy, it just grows. Okay. Whatever we focus on grows. That's Mars Pluto story as well. So we want to just keep seeing what comes after the Earth during the evolution, okay? Instead of focusing on the letting go of the past in whatever way the Earth decides to do that, as we all are right now with this whole Saturn South Node story. We want to just always see from the higher perspective is what he's saying, and focus on the growth that's taking place in our lives, and focus on what will be the utopia that we're going for, okay? Like when we come back in, what the work that we did here, the seeds that we planted, what did the next generation do with those? Okay? Like we didn't drag our kids to church or religiousize them like we were. And so these kids they think for themselves, and they're revolutionaries. That's their astrology. They are revolutionaries. So it's exciting, okay? We're just going to focus there, because there's a lot that's going to come down. So this full moon is at 24 degrees of Capricorn, and in the UK, and I run the charts for the UK because that's universal time. So I like to look at the houses there to see what the astrology is going to be overall for everyone. So it's at 2:17 a.m. So that's an 8. That's infinity. And I'm sorry, you guys, I just looked at the wrong chart. Sorry. That was when, okay. Yeah, that's when the seed was planted. Okay. And that was an 11 year, but this time we have it at 10:30 p.m. So it's the 16th of July, 10:38 p.m. in the United Kingdom. So that would be 4:38 p.m. in Chicago, and you can just adjust for your time zones. I need to remember to look it up for Australia. If somebody wants to put that in the comments, I would appreciate it. But that's an 11, a 3, and an 8. So we have the 8 again, but the 3, the symbol of the Trinity and pyramids and coming together. I know they have more than 3 sides, but it is one of the numbers associated with the pyramid. And, that it is reaching, spirit and matter coming together and then moving up, coming to our ascension. As we get into the Pluto and release the secrets and the dark stories in our subconscious, and the energy comes off of us, when we ascend, we become lighter, because you're dragging around, all of us are dragging around old stories that are holding our energy down. And then, but it's just like, Jesus was talking about, that you go into that place and get that all cleaned out so that you can get to the good stuff, the light, becoming the eagle, the phoenix that's rising from the ashes. And that's what the Earth, that's the period that we're in now. And so it's at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So you'll feel this more if your planets are, I'm going to say, because it's an eclipse, I'm going to give it a wide berth. So we're going to say planets from 17, 18 degrees of a sign, and then going up to 30. Okay, so it'll be more intense, obviously, if the planets are 22 to 26 degrees, but it also depends on your level of sensitivity. It depends on your own Saturn, your own Pluto, and your moon issues. But for me, it's been wonderful, and women are the moon, and then Venus. Sorry, guys, I was going to cough. I'm not going to show this chart just because there's so many interceptions. But Jupiter is retrograde at the pinnacle of the sky, which is the midheaven and what the public sees. So that's typically religious figures, but it can also be, it's male authority figures for sure. Typically it's religious figures. So that's very interesting. But remember, Jupiter had a lot to say in that new moon that we planted in 2018. And then we've got the moon happening just 2-3 degrees from Pluto himself, okay? And when there's an eclipse, what happens is with the lunar eclipse is that the earth casts a shadow on the moon. The light goes out. That's why in each of our lives, something is eclipsed. And South Node eclipses in ancient times were known to be natural disasters, outbreaks of famine. Like but they also believed that. And so as we speak, we create. As we think, we create. So, take that for what it's worth. But that is what they believed. And Pluto is very close to this moon, and then Saturn and the South Node are not quite they're at the same degree, not quite like on top of each other, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's still going to be abuse of power. Okay, that's the patriarchy. That setup, Saturn South Node retrograde, is the patriarchy. So there's Pluto, the feminine, the Phoenix. Okay. And Sirius, the fixed star that I talked about at the portal, Sirius and Venus, the goddess, and the North Node are all clumped up there together with the sun. And they're in the house of Leo, leadership, shining, what comes shining through, what gifts we have to bring, our sun, our light that we have to shine. Okay. So that's awesome. And it's awesome for relationships with women and women coming together to partner and just getting in touch with your feminine aspect, or your mother, if you're a male. But it's awesome. And Sirius, the fixed star Sirius, carries the energy of Isis, and it sits at the bridge of the Milky Way. So we have that energy, and then we have the goddess. And the North Node in the sky is where we're going, where we're headed, what comes next, is what he's saying, okay? And Venus rules Taurus, the blooming and the blossoming. What happens after that seed cracks open, and then it starts making its way up, and it bursts into whatever beautiful color. These are from my yard. Aren't they extraordinarily beautiful? And what you have, like, what do you have? They're always telling me bloom. Where are you going to bloom? What are you going to do with this energy as we come into wrapping up the Cancer season and moving into Leo, and Mars is there, and it's fun time, and time to get creative, and time to show off your light in some way, in whatever way that you have to create. So that's really exciting. And, just keep in mind that we're still looking at most likely a lot of water events. And Taurus also is beauty. So, and Venus is balance. And so we're looking at a period now where we're going to come into balance. Again, focusing on yourself. Like, what are you giving yourself to replenish everything that you're giving to everyone else? And, coming into relationships that are balanced, where there's passion and we love the person. It isn't just out of convenience or because we feel like we're obligated to stay with the person. That builds up a lot of resentment between people. And so we want to just release that and think about, if you did decide to make a change, like I said in the video with Jesus, this is a time when we're going to spend time on our own and be happy about that. That's when you're ready to welcome someone new in. When you're satisfied and happy within yourself, just being on your own. Because that energy is what you give off, and then that, like a magnet, attracts the partner in. It's when we're still discontent and want to change this, want to change that, don't completely accept ourselves as we are. We don't want to get into relationship then, because that's what's going to be reflected back to you. That's Venus. So that's important to keep in mind right now as well. This, again, Pluto, Saturn in Capricorn, banking. So it could be a lot of secrets that come up in regard to money. I'm just checking on Mercury. See, he's pretty, I mean, he's not so close to Mars, but, you know, he's still in Leo at that time. He hasn't moved back into Cancer yet. So it could be something about somebody in leadership. Leo is like royal status, and it's also leadership. But Capricorn is leadership and the authority figure too. So we'll see what happens with that. Anything come up with the banks. A lot of times too, I wonder, do things happen and we just don't hear it because it isn't so cataclysmic? You know what I mean? Of course, obviously things happen and we don't hear about it. And then we have Metatron's asteroid with Vesta. That is, again, the energy of the high priestess, the Vestal virgins who worked in the temples. And it looks like because of these interceptions, that the feminine isn't maybe given her due right around just now. But that is the direction where we're headed. Okay? And also because Nessus and Black Moon Lilith and Neptune, Nessus, which is abuse and the wrapping up of a karmic cycle, and Neptune, the planet of spirit, those are retrograde, and the public as well. Those are all retrograde in Pisces in the first house. That still points to, well, Metatron saying religious extremism, and stories regarding religious leadership. So would not be surprised if more things happen. For those of you who are waiting to come into physical union with the twin flame or soulmate, however you call, whatever term you use for that, the asteroid union is exactly with the part of fortune, which lends its energy. It expresses the energy of whatever it's closest to. It emphasizes it. So that's the asteroid union, which talks about soulmate union. You can have that even with family members, kids. That's pretty common with our kids that we have that aspect. But they're in Virgo, and they're on the descendant. Okay, which is what we don't see. So what that tells me is that there could be things happening where we could look back in retrospect and realize, oh, that's why this and this was going on. Don't really see that as a let's go, let's do this kind of scenario at the moment. But that's, eclipse season, and then South Node Saturn, maybe not a good time to, well, I'm not going to say that. I've said it before. But I don't know that you wouldn't have serious things to work out together. It would be a very karmic relationship, and that's not necessarily bad. We've got agreements with all of our soulmates that you could call karmic situations. Doesn't have to be something negative. But we're going to focus on the phoenix rising from the ashes, and what does the new world look like to you? Who is in charge of that? And it isn't going to necessarily be a woman. It's going to be someone whose feminine side leads, okay? Who doesn't lead with the masculine, or really who is in balance, because that's Venus and justice. So that's good too, because it's justice with the North Node, like where we're going. And it's in the sign of the moon. It's in Cancer. So we have a lot of things, again, coming up with the mother in whatever way. I hadn't spoken to my mother for like 5.5 years until we saw each other in May. And so far, the conversations that we've had have been good. And there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into that, but Mother Mary did ask me to mention before I started talking about this video, that I will be doing a healing meditation with her in regard to motherhood, mothering, healing with, for us in our relationship with our mother. So that will be coming up. And then I'm going to do a video about Metatron. So you could send questions to my email, which is in the description box. I know so many of you have asked me questions for a long time about exactly who Metatron is, and I'm going to now address it. I needed someone who is a soul sister to say something in a video that she shared, and then I sent her a message and I was like, thank you, because I haven't been brave enough to say that first. So I'm getting there. I'm a work in progress. So, right? Aren't we all? So, yeah. And, let's keep in mind that we're still in a period with eclipses. Anytime there's eclipses, Earth events are pretty common. And, yeah, we're coming into balance. The Earth is coming into balance as we are. So, yeah, chin up. And it really doesn't look, like so terrible on either one of these charts. Doesn't look like horrible things are going to be happening. But I wouldn't be surprised if there is something with trade. Because now when I'm looking at the third house, the Gemini house, which Mercury rules, Heimdall, which is means the guard of the bridge between heaven and earth, and identified as Metatron's asteroid, one of the bodies that we link with him. Pluto, Heimdall, the moon, and Venus and the sun were all together in that third house of trade, and also what's spoken in public. So the divine feminine, that's why they're, I almost said I have the girls, but yeah, that's why Pallas Athena, Mother Mary, and Isis are all here too, because the divine feminine is really having a say, okay? And that doesn't just mean women. Like I said, that's men. We're all both. And I think I'm going to just mention that this is a portal. This is what... So I was in another place, it was years ago, and I was in a full-blown panic with, I believe, my twin flame, and trying to get all kinds of stuff ready to make the jump through the portal, and this is what it looked like. It was basically, it wasn't so much obvious, like it was more circular, but it was basically something coming up. There were like flames on either side of that, and there were flames on that as well, on that ring. And I wanted us to be able to jump through that, and we weren't going to make it. So anyway, guys, very interesting, isn't it? Maybe keep one of these close to you. If you have anything with the triple moon goddess signature, and I don't have it close by, but anything with the Vesica Pisces symbolism right now, something of the divine feminine, maybe a stone, something feminine looking, rose quartz, of course, always a good idea. But yeah, so anyway, everybody, I have a lot going on this week, but I believe that Metatron video will go up, he's saying the end of this week. So if you'd like to shoot me an email with questions, or you could leave them in the comments. If I don't like answer your comment with at least a love, a little heart, then I just haven't seen it. So, and then more class information will come up to, I'm just waiting for Metatron to give me the heads up and moving forward with that. I know people were saying that they wanted more information, so I'll talk about it when the video goes up. Also check on YouTube. I uploaded, because I make posts for Facebook, I put one on, I believe you go under the community tab. I put one up the other day, and if you click the little bell at the bottom, then you'll get the notification. So I really appreciate all of you guys, everyone who subscribes and likes and shares. Thank you so much for everyone who shares the videos and everything else that I post. I really appreciate that, because when I have a message and they come to me to say something, I love to see that it's getting out there. That's the Metatron energy, right? How we all link together in our communication, and whatever kind of communication that is. So yes, we'll get more into that later. And anyway, everybody, I hope that everyone is well, and I believe that we have come to the end of this video. That's all that we're going to cover now. Let's all get ready to bloom, to be in relationships that are sustainable. Okay, yeah, he wanted me to mention that. Saturn is the one who he rules time. And when Saturn is involved in anything, that of like you can't say permanent because things are always changing, but there's longevity in a relationship. Like if you have a chart with someone and you have a lot of Saturn links, then most likely you're going to have a long relationship. Like my ex-husband and I, we have a lot of Saturn links, and even though we did not, come together for a long time, we raised the kids together. I mean, we're still doing the kids together, so we'll probably know each other forever, right? So, Saturn is going to be in an aspect where he will oppose the point that he was, or hang on one second. I need to take a look at that chart. But Saturn's going to be aspecting a degree that it's like opposite from where he is right now to sort of set these energies up. Okay, he is moving backward, but that's still his job. So Metatron wanted me to mention that as well. And that Saturn is the master, and so he also represents what it is that we came here to build. So this is a really good time as we move away from the full moon now, and we're getting ready to come to that new moon on July 31st in Leo. It is spectacular. Spectacular. I'm very excited about that new moon. So, and I think that a lot of us who've been waiting to move forward with things will start moving then. So, myself included. Anyway, everybody, take care, and I will talk to you at the end of the week. Leave any questions in the description, or I'm sorry, you can send an email to in the description box. Everything that you want to know pretty much is going to be in the description box. So anyway, everybody, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.